There's a moment in every era when engineering meets emotion, when precision and power merge into something almost alive. It's the feeling of a machine built not just to perform, but to prove a point, to embody everything its creator believes about speed, control, and dominance. Imagine a bike so pure in purpose that it could blur the line between road and racetrack, crafted with the same obsession as a Formula One car, yet offered to anyone with the courage to master it. This is the story of how one machine's perfection forced the next to evolve, and how that evolution revealed the soul of its maker. Because when you chase perfection, every step forward means letting go of what came before, and that's never easy. Stick around because we're diving deep into a rivalry born within the same factory walls. Like, subscribe, and comment what legendary machine you want to see next. The Honda RC30 was never meant to be ordinary. Built in the late 1980s under Honda's Racing Corporation banner, it existed to prove that a street-legal motorcycle could carry the heart of a race machine without compromise. The RC30 wasn't just a product of its time, it was the product of an obsession. Honda wanted to dominate the newly formed World Superbike Championship, and the RC30 became their weapon of choice. This wasn't a bike designed to win customers. It was designed to win races, and that purpose shaped every decision. Its 748cc V4 engine was hand-assembled with gear-driven cams that sang a metallic symphony unlike anything else on the road. Titanium connecting rods, magnesium covers, and a single-sided swing arm weren't for show. They were for speed, weight, and ease of maintenance on the track. Every piece of it felt like something that escaped the paddock. Owning one was an event. The RC30 cost more than most cars of its era, and it wasn't forgiving. The riding position was extreme, the clutch heavy, the gearing tall. But for those who understood what it was, a homologation special built so racers like Fred Merkel could take it to world titles, it was perfection. The RC30 brought engineering purity to the street, and in doing so, it set a standard that few dared to chase. Honda poured its soul into the RC30 at a time when racing dictated technology. The focus was on precision machining, hand finishing, and mechanical harmony. Every valve, every bolt, every panel reflected a level of craftsmanship that came from an era before computers dictated the outcome. It was built by people who thought the best machines should feel alive. That philosophy defined the RC30, and it also defined the limits of what could be done by hand. Because even as the RC30 was rewriting the rules, Honda's engineers knew something was coming. The world was shifting toward digital fuel injection, electronic mapping, and more standardized production methods. What they had created in the RC30 was extraordinary, but it was also unsustainable, too expensive, too labor-intensive, too analog for a world about to be defined by data. Inside Honda, a new challenge was taking shape. Build a successor that could do what the RC30 did, but with the precision and scalability of modern technology. That challenge would become the RC45. But before that, the RC30 had to finish its mission. On the racetrack, it became a legend almost instantly. Merkel won the inaugural World Superbike Championship on one. It was fast, reliable, and composed in a way that competitors could only envy. Riders trusted it completely because it delivered the same balance lap after lap. On the road, it was exotic, demanding, and utterly rewarding. You didn't buy an RC30 to commute. You bought it to own a piece of engineering that carried Honda's racing DNA intact. For Honda, though, success was never a reason to stop. The RC30 had proven a philosophy, but that same philosophy had become a constraint. To stay on top, Honda needed something more adaptive, something that could respond to the changing rules of racing and the realities of mass production. They had proven that human hands could create a masterpiece. Now, they wanted to prove that machines and software could do it better. And so, in the early 1990s, as racing evolved and emissions tightened, Honda prepared its next statement piece. The RC45 would take everything the RC30 taught and translate it for a new generation. A generation that measured progress not by how something felt, but by what it could do. The hand-built masterpiece was about to meet the age of precision manufacturing. And that transition would test not just Honda's engineers, but the very idea of what made a superbike great. Next, we'll see how the RC45 tried to carry the torch, and how its perfection came with a price Honda never expected to pay. The Honda RC45 arrived in 1994 as the long-awaited successor to the RC30, but from the very start it was clear this was not the same kind of machine. Where the RC30 was crafted like a fine watch, the RC45 was engineered like a scalpel, precise, efficient, and calculated. Honda didn't want to simply repeat the past. It wanted to redefine what a superbike could be in the new digital age. The RC45's 749cc V4 engine shared the same basic configuration as the RC30's, but that's where the similarities ended. Gone were the gear-driven cams and hand-polished internals. In came electronic fuel injection, a sophisticated PGM-FI system that adjusted fueling in real time. This wasn't just evolution. It was a philosophical shift from human artistry to electronic intelligence. On paper, it was brilliant. The RC45 made more power, revved smoother, and offered tunability that racers could only dream of with carburetors. But to the riders who loved the raw, visceral feel of the RC30, the RC45 felt clinical. It was like comparing a hand-drawn sketch to a computer render. Technically perfect, but missing the warmth. Yet for Honda, the RC45 represented a necessary future. Racing regulations had changed, competition had evolved, and Honda needed a platform that could adapt quickly through software and setup, not just hardware. In competition, though, the RC45 faced a tougher world. The early world superbike grids were no longer a Honda playground. Rivals had learned fast, and lighter, nimbler twins began stealing the spotlight. The RC45, despite its technical brilliance, struggled to dominate the way the RC30 had. It was heavier, more complex, and less intuitive to set up. Even with riders of immense skill, it often seemed like it needed just a little more time, a little more refinement. And in racing, time is the one thing you never have enough of. Still, in the hands of true masters, the RC45 shone. Honda's engineers worked tirelessly to extract more performance, refining its electronics, chassis balance, and fueling with each iteration. When it finally clicked, it became a force again, culminating in the legendary 1997 World Superbike Championship victory with John Kaczynski at the helm. That title wasn't just a win. It was a validation that Honda's new approach could still deliver greatness. The RC45 had proven that data-driven precision could rival hand-built soul if you knew how to unlock it. Off the racetrack, the RC45 remained a rare sight. Like the RC30, it was a homologation special, built in limited numbers for those who wanted a street bike that could double as a race machine. But this time, the experience was different. The RC45 was quieter, smoother, and somehow less emotional. It demanded respect, not affection. You didn't ride it to feel connected to a mechanical heart. You rode it to witness what the future of control felt like. It was an engineer's masterpiece, not an artisan's. And yet, that's exactly what makes the RC45 so fascinating. It wasn't built to replace the RC30 emotionally. It was built to surpass it technologically. The problem was that people don't fall in love with data, they fall in love with feel. The RC30 spoke to riders in a language of vibration and sound. The RC45 spoke in measured precision and silence. For some, that was the end of Honda's golden age of superbikes. For others, it was the start of something new, a doorway to the digital evolution that would define modern sport bikes for decades to come. As the 1990s came to a close, the RC45's influence began to ripple outward. Its fuel injection system became the blueprint for later generations. Its chassis geometry informed everything from the VTR to the CBR series. Honda had used the RC45 as a laboratory, a testbed for ideas that would later make production bikes faster, cleaner, and more accessible. But for collectors and enthusiasts, the RC45 remained a puzzle, a bike that demanded more than it gave, unless you understood its intent. In the end, the RC45's brilliance wasn't about dominance, it was about evolution. It bridged the gap between analog mastery and digital precision, showing that progress always comes with trade-offs. For Honda, it meant embracing a new identity, one that prized technological perfection over emotional resonance. And while the RC45 may not have captured hearts the way the RC30 did, it captured something equally powerful, the respect of every engineer who saw what it could do. Next, we'll look at what both machines left behind, their influence, their mythology, and what they still mean to riders today. Because when you trace the DNA of any modern superbike, you'll find both the RC30's soul and the RC45's intellect living side by side. The Honda RC30 and RC45 may have been born from the same lineage, but their legacies tell two very different stories. The RC30 became the icon of purity, an analog masterpiece from an era when feel mattered more than figures. The RC45, on the other hand, marked the turning point when Honda decided to trade romance for refinement, artistry for analytics. Together they form a kind of mechanical evolution chart, two milestones that trace how Honda learned to blend heart and intellect in the pursuit of speed. the RC30's legend endures? Because it represents something that feels almost extinct today. A machine built entirely around the rider. Its V4 engine didn't just make power, it communicated. It pulsed, it growled, it rewarded finesse over aggression. Owners talk about it as if it's alive because in many ways it is. The RC30 connects you to every combustion cycle, every micro adjustment of the throttle. It's mechanical empathy, frozen in aluminum and titanium. The RC45, by contrast, asks for trust. Its fuel injection calculates more in a second than any rider could in an hour. Its chassis setup demands mathematical precision, and when everything is dialed in, it delivers a level of stability that borders on surreal. It's less about conversation and more about control. Today, collectors and restorers often pair them like yin and yang, the RC30 as the spirit, the RC45 as the mind. The former is cherished for its soul, the latter for its sophistication. But their combined influence on Honda's later superbikes is impossible to ignore. Every V4 that came after, from the RC51 to the modern RC213 VS, carries traces of both. The hand-built obsession of the RC30 became the gold standard for craftsmanship, while the RC45's electronic insight laid the groundwork for modern performance tuning. Together, they redefined what a manufacturer could achieve when it refused to settle for imitation. Their road-going rarity also amplifies their myth. With only a few thousand RC30s and even fewer RC45s produced, these bikes have become blue-chip collectibles, commanding six-figure prices in pristine condition. But it's not just scarcity driving that value, it's what they represent. Each bike tells a chapter of Honda's identity, the willingness to push boundaries, to reinvent itself, even at the cost of nostalgia. In a world where most superbikes now rely on electronic safety nets and ride-by-wire calm, the RC30 and RC45 remind us what it took to get here. Years of experimentation, risk, and passion. Long before data-driven engineering became the rule. And maybe that's their real legacy. The RC30 showed what human hands could achieve when driven by perfection. The RC45 proved that progress demands evolution, even when it means leaving the past behind. Both stand as proof that excellence isn't a moment. It's a continuum, a constant negotiation between feeling and function. The RC30 and RC45 didn't just change how bikes were built. They changed how riders thought about what a superbike could be. And while one spoke to the heart and the other to the head, both carried the same message forward, that perfection is never final. It's only the next lap. Next, we'll close this story with what these two masterpieces mean for today's riders and collectors, how they've aged, what they're worth, and why their legacies still echo across every corner of motorcycling. For riders and collectors today, the Honda RC30 and RC45 represent more than just rare motorcycles. They're snapshots of Honda's soul at two distinct moments in time. The RC30, produced between 1987 and 1990, is now revered as the purest expression of what a homologation special could be. Its limited numbers, hand-built quality, and unfiltered mechanical feel make it the ultimate analog superbike experience. In the US, surviving examples trade hands anywhere from $70,000 to well over $150,000, depending on originality and mileage. Prices keep climbing because once you ride one, you understand. It's not nostalgia you're buying, it's connection. Every gear change, every rev, every vibration feels like it was designed just for you. It's the last motorcycle that truly put the rider ahead of the machine. The RC45, built from 1994 to 1999, tells a different story. For years, it was the overlooked sibling, too complex, too digital, and too misunderstood. But as collectors and historians have grown to appreciate what it achieved, its reputation has shifted dramatically. The RC45's sophistication, its use of early fuel injection, its balance and refinement, all of it now reads as visionary. Prices that once lagged behind the RC30 have risen steadily, with pristine examples pushing beyond six figures. Those who own one today often describe it as the moment when the modern superbike truly began. It's not just a collectible, it's a benchmark of where performance met precision. For American enthusiasts, owning either machine isn't just about the ride, it's about the story. These bikes were never mass imported in large numbers, and each one that made it stateside carries an aura of forbidden fruit. Finding parts can be a challenge. Maintaining them properly requires patience, money, and expertise. But for those who commit, the payoff is extraordinary. The RC30 offers an experience that feels raw and alive, while the RC45 rewards you with composure and confidence that feels decades ahead of its time. Both are timeless, but in entirely different ways. Reliability, too, reflects their personalities. The RC30, with its gear-driven cams and overbuilt components, is remarkably robust if maintained correctly. The RC45, though more complex, is equally durable. Honda engineered both to survive endurance racing, and that DNA carries through. What limits ownership isn't reliability, but reverence. These bikes have become too valuable, too symbolic for many owners to ride hard anymore. And yet, every so often, one still appears at a track day or collector meet, its V4 soundtrack echoing across the tarmac, reminding everyone why these machines mattered in the first place. In the end, the RC30 and RC45 aren't just motorcycles, they're philosophies cast in metal. One celebrates the art of craftsmanship, the other the art of control. Together, they define Honda's greatest era of superbike innovation and the transition from analog soul to digital mind. They are proof that perfection is never a single moment, but a continuum of daring choices, each one pushing the boundary of what's possible. And that's why, decades later, the legend of the RC30 and RC45 still endures. Because when passion and precision collide, what you get isn't just speed, it's legacy.